Good evening and welcome to this episode of Solutions of Success. I'm Paula Stinnett, and joining me tonight is Daniel Peterson, CPA extraordinaire, who's going to answer all of your questions. Mom and Dad at home, feel free to call in and ask Daniel anything you'd like regarding finance, investments, loans, student loans. And I'm putting him on the spot. So Daniel, you up to this?
I am.
Good man, good man. And joining us this evening also from Lafayette High School is Perk Shaw. Hi, Perk. Thank you for joining us. And Nick Crawford from Ringgold High School. Now, your principals have bragged about you guys and have told me how wonderful you are. Tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Well, I actually was born in India, and I actually moved to Lafayette this year. And it's been a great senior year, and going to graduate tomorrow. I'm going to Georgia State University next year, and I'll be majoring in finance.
Wow, congratulations on that graduation. Well done. And Mr. Crawford.
I'm originally from Chattanooga, Tennessee, so from around here. I'm the senior class president this year at Ringgold. I plan on going to the University of Tennessee and studying public relations.
Excellent, excellent. These young men obviously are on their ball game and their top drawer and ready to go on with the rest of their lives. Let's see what old Daniel can tell them. Daniel, what about you?
Me?
You.
Oh, I started my career in accounting many years ago.
Oh.
We'll leave it at that.
Okay. And he's modest, somewhat. Now, the young guys have came up with some grand questions to get the ball rolling so that we can learn exactly how best to manage our money. And Daniel's going to answer and tell us how it's done. Gentlemen?
Do you have any advice on how to pay for college?
I do. There are ways that we can pay for college. Sometimes we look for funds for other folks, funds from parents, funds from the bank. Sometimes we save, but
Let's talk about that a little more when we get a little further in depth. Is that okay with you, Perk, if we come back?
Yes.
Have another question?
Actually, as I said, I wanted to major in finance, so I like numbers, but, I don't really see myself as an accountant, so what can I do with accounting?
wow, there's a lot of things you can do with accounting. It doesn't have to be a full-blown CPA for you to have a career with numbers, whether it's accounting or with finance. I've got some information, I don't know exactly, you want to throw that up on the screen, about what your options are with accounting. But you can have a technical certificate from a community college that you could get into a bookkeeping position where you're an accounts payable clerk or an AP clerk. There's a good entry-level positions that you can get into with little cost from a college perspective. There are 2-year degrees, associate degrees, that you can also earn from a community college that will get you a little bit further into the accounting field. You can go for a full 4-year bachelor's in science, I believe it is. That will get you into an accounting firm or into another opportunity. Your starting salaries in those different positions will vary depending on your willingness to invest in yourself and invest in that schooling. So the starting salaries will go up the more schooling that you have. Once you're in place in a career in accounting, you can do just about anything. It's a good baseline career to start. Whether you want to be an entrepreneur and own your own business, whether you want to be a controller of a company, whether you want to be a CEO of a company. There are many different things you can do.
Zach, can you add that slide so that we can show the levels of education that are required? I believe it's the first slide. Thank you, Zach.
There you go. So from there, you can see the different levels that we just talked about. 1 year, 2 years at a community college, 4 years at a university. If you want to continue on, Zach, if you'll move to the next slide for us, you can get a master's in accounting. It's going to require an additional 2 years of schooling. But with that, you'll be able to sit for the CPA exam. The CPA exam is a very rigorous exam, so there'll be a lot of additional studying you'll have to do. But it does have rewards because the title of CPA is something that is treasured by those folks that actually earned it. Again, it will launch your career in many different directions depending on what your passion is. So if it is something that you're good at, numbers, I certainly would encourage you to choose that path. You could get a degree in finance as well. I don't know as much about the opportunities that exist in finance because obviously I went the accounting route. So some of the other useful tools that you may want to look at if you're interested in the CPA certificate or that direction, there are some state board of accountancies and state societies. The Georgia Society of CPAs is listed there. The Tennessee Society of CPAs is listed there. There's also a national organization. It's called the American Institute of CPAs that is out there. Those are all resources you could go to if you're interested in searching more about accounting.
Okay.
Oh, wow, that was a thorough explanation. True accountant style. Now, you were talking about tax returns. And Lord knows I put I put you through enough with mine. Dependents, head of household, married, single, filing joint, separate. Oh my gosh, what do we do with all these dependent people?
Yeah, it's almost like lions and tigers and bears.
Oh my.
Absolutely. There's a lot of questions that revolve around that during tax time. And in order to answer some of those, I've laid out a slide there on screen. Essentially, to be a dependent, you have to meet a series of tests on an individual. So, Paula, if you've got an individual that is unmarried, is a U.S. citizen, and either meets the qualifying child rules or the qualifying relative rules, then you can claim that person as a dependent on your tax return. Now, when it says qualifying is a specific word and has specific definitions. And you can see on the slide there it says either your son, daughter, or stepchild. That can be yours directly or yours through marriage. They can be under the age of 19. There's no question about their dependency status. If they're 19 or above, then there becomes a question of their dependency status if they're a full-time student or not.
Okay.
So between the ages of 19 and 24, if you have a child that's in school, say Perk went to school, and now his parents want to claim him as a dependent on their tax return, then essentially that if he meets all the other requirements and he's a full-time student, he would qualify as a dependent.
This is definitely incentive for young people to stay in school because you can be claimed on your parents' tax return, and also doesn't that qualify them to stay on the insurance as well, the parents' health insurance?
The health insurance rules were changed with the Obamacare legislation, and I believe that goes till age 26.
26 now, definitely. And young people don't realize how important health insurance is.
How important and how costly it can be.
Amen. Amen.
But some of the things that I wanted to bring up as we talk about the dependents, Zach, if you'll flip to that next slide for us, is why does the dependency deduction matter? Many times you have broken families, they're fighting over the dependency exemption. The dependency exemption controls a lot of different things on your tax return. Your filing status, whether you're single or head of household, could be determined by that dependency. It changes the amount of refund that you get or taxes that you owe depending on that filing status. In other words, married filing jointly gets taxed at 15% up to a certain dollar amount. The head of household status has a greater tax benefit to the individual who's able to claim head of household status.
And that would be a
And
person
filing
who is not married.
Right.
Can claim head of household if there is a dependent child.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. The other things that are affected by that dependency status is the child tax credit. If your child is under the age of 17, there's a $1,000 tax credit that you get, some of which is refundable. That makes a big difference on a taxpayer's return when that child's under age 17. The earned income credit is also affected by that dependency exemption amount. So keep in mind that if you do claim that child as a dependent, you also are required to make sure they have health insurance coverage for the year. Otherwise, the Obamacare penalty comes into play. So that's why I've listed the health insurance coverage on that piece. And then the education credits. Whoever is able to claim that child as a dependent on their tax return gets the educational credits for that child. So the educational credits we'll talk about a little bit later, but there are two different kinds. There is an American Opportunity Credit and a Lifetime Learning Credit.
Wow, there's so much. It's no wonder we have to have a CPA to know these laws, these rules, the legislation's changing. Definitely, it affects the filing and whether we're doing so lawfully or not. Because I know I couldn't keep up with all that and file myself. And by the way, when you get that tax refund, remember to spend it at home. Really important, spend it here at home. Support your local economy with that tax refund. All right, guys, you're waiting in the wings. What you got?
Okay. I've heard a lot of people say that if you need a car or something like that, that you can use a pay stub or tax return to purchase that. How would you go about doing that?
Well, when you look at buying a car, that car may cost you $10,000, $12,000, $15,000. What you're doing by using your pay stub is you're verifying with them your income. If they are filing your tax return and you're using your tax refund to begin that car buying process, that's essentially a down payment.
Yeah, and you see those advertisements everywhere. Just bring your tax return in with your refund and drive away today.
Yes, yes.
So-
Buyer beware.
Good point.
What you need to know about that vehicle part, Nick, is when you go in to buy the car, they're selling you on the payment amount. Can you afford that payment amount? What you need to look at and step away from is how much am I paying for the car? What is my interest rate? And what I want to show you the dollar impact of those interest rates on a $15,000 purchase. Many times you can finance a car over 5 years. If you were to finance that $15,000 car over 5 years at 5% interest rate, your payment's $283. Over that 5-year period, you're going to pay near $2,000 of interest. So you're going to be paying in total $17,000 for that vehicle that you financed. If you look at the fine print of the paperwork and the interest rate creeps up and it becomes 10%, you're paying $4,000 in interest on a 10% note. On a 15% note, you're paying $6,400 in interest on that same purchase. Why does the interest rate fluctuate? The interest rate fluctuates based upon your credit worthiness, the strength of your ability to pay back that loan, because whoever is loaning you that money has a risk involved of you not being able to pay it back. By the time they get the car back, the car is depreciated in value. It's not worth as much. So they're having to calculate their risk in that purchase. So we'll talk later. I want to show you some tools of investing, ways that you can save money so that you can save that interest cost by putting a little bit today, every day, consistently. Get to the point where you can pay cash for your vehicle and continue to make that payment to yourself every day. Then by the time your vehicle is old enough and needs to be replaced, you can pay cash for the next one.
If you don't mind, I have two more questions
Please.
that are along those same lines.
Yeah.
One, I know that with mortgages, you can get a fixed mortgage, and I believe that's where it's the same interest rate throughout. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is there any way you can do that with a car where it's not so interest rates don't go up, it's the same interest rate the entire time?
Yes, many of your car loans do have a fixed rate too,
Okay.
because they're for a shorter period of time, a 5-year period of time.
Okay.
Where you find your variable rates is commercial loans, rental properties, those kinds of things. Your home mortgage, you should be trying to get a fixed rate mortgage, and your vehicle loans should be a fixed rate as well.
Okay.
But
So-
good point.
Thank you.
Because that interest rate creep is going to happen. We're in very, very
Right.
low interest rate times right now, and if you get into a variable rate loan and 5 years down the road, those rates change. It
Absolutely.
can be very costly.
So with all those variables and things that you don't know what's going to happen, you said you were going to talk later about savings. Would you have any advice on how it would be better just to save in the beginning, or are there positives to both sides? Because to me, listening to it, why not just save up in the beginning? Would there be a positive to financing the car or going that route?
There could be a positive to financing the car in the fact that you're establishing credit. If you're working through an organization that doesn't report to a credit agency, you're not doing anything to gain any sort of credit rating. So banks will report those loans to the credit bureaus. There are other organizations that do report to the credit bureaus. But if that's the purpose of the loan, is to try and establish some sort of a credit rating, then there is a healthy balance between paying cash and borrowing. I believe that being out of debt is a preferred way to be. So if you can be disciplined from the very start, when you get your paychecks and set money aside for that purpose, you'll find that life is much better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think, and I wanted to draw attention to one thing, Daniel, credit worthiness. So oftentimes, when I was teaching high school, I would see young people with credit cards already. And of course, their management of money is not always what we would hope it would be.
Yeah.
And they end up in trouble with credit issues before they've ever graduated high school. Yeah. And you've seen all these offers. They come in the mail, right? Mm-hmm. You've been pre-approved. Take this card, take this card. But learning to manage your budget is a big step in growing up and maturing.
Yes.
And even as adults, we see many people filing bankruptcy, having financial issues because of not being able to manage money. And unfortunately, they've pulled a lot of the accounting classes out of the curriculum. And we think, I think that those things should be taught better at home, at schools, and just in society. Right. Do something to prohibit those pre-approved. My daughter was 13 when she received in the mail her first "You're pre-approved."
Wow.
13.
Yeah.
And I called him and said, "Really? How can you do this? How can you do this?" But once you ruin that credit, how do you reestablish? How do you fix it? Can you fix it?
You can fix it. It takes time.
A lot of time. So young people, beware of credit cards and financing if you cannot pay for it.
Those are tough lessons to be learned. And we fail our children in not teaching them about budgeting. Probably because we didn't learn about budgeting.
Yeah, my mother always said, what do you mean she doesn't have money? She still has checks. What? Of course, my dad always took care of those issues, but fortunately. But it is difficult, these debit cards, and I see that with a lot of young people, they'll go and, oops, it doesn't work. Because if there's not money in there, the debit card will say declined. So learning to manage money, I think that's a great time to say there are quizzes online for your student to learn about managing money. http://parentingteens.about.com. There's a quiz there. Let your teen take that and talk with your teen about learning to manage his or her own money. Could save their financial future. All right, guys, anything else?
You hit on credit cards a little bit. I had a question about, what if someone, they never have cash and they were considering getting a credit card or wanting a credit card, what would they need to know and what would the alternatives be?
Yeah, good follow-up question to Paula's there.
Slide, please, Zach.
When it comes to credit cards, you've got a couple of things that I want to kind of bring to your attention. Most credit cards carry a significant interest rate, 23.99%. If you look at the screen, the cost of that 24% interest rate on a $5,000 balance, if you only pay that monthly payment amount, how much you'll be paying in interest over the time. So in 2 years, you'll have paid off a $5,000 balance, but you will have paid $1,300 in interest. If you reduce your monthly payment amount, because that's all you can budget for, just in an attempt to pay off the card, you'll more than pay for that balance twice over a 10-year period. You're going to pay a total of $13,000 on a $5,000 balance. So yes, your question, Paula's question about credit cards is be very, very cautious. we can do things to help our youngsters learn how to use credit cards wisely, how to budget those things.
And we're going to talk about those when we return. And now some messages from our sponsors while I go and look at my credit score. Stay tuned.
We're on the air 24/7. A North Georgia taste of heaven. A fun place to be. And we're your family. UCTV.
Dr. Carl F. Peterson Jr. has been practicing dentistry in the Rossville area for over 30 years. He and his professional staff will gently take care of all of your general, orthodontic, and cosmetic dentistry needs. Dr. Peterson is a participating provider with most insurance companies as well as HealthSpring and Medicaid and will gladly file your insurance. You will be greeted by his friendly staff who take pride in making sure your visit is a pleasant experience. Call and schedule your smile makeover, and don't forget to mention seeing this ad on Solutions of Success to receive a 20% discount on your visit.
At Accelerated Workflow Solutions, we provide software and training in the field of voice recognition to help make computers more accessible for both medical professionals and people with disabilities. Call us at 706-375-3007. We are the Dragon People. We are Accelerated Workflow Solutions.
Hello, kids. If every American just recycled 1/10 of every newspaper, then we could save 25,000 trees per year.
Wow!
Remember, we did not inherit this earth from our ancestors. We're borrowing it from our children. Be a part of Keep Fort Oglethorpe Beautiful. Call the number you see at the bottom of your screen now to become a part of Keeping Fort Oglethorpe Green. This is Council Lady Paula Stinnett. God bless and keep America beautiful.
We've got the power.
Uh-oh, Dad's gonna be mad.
If you find yourself in need of an attorney, call the law offices of Robert L. Stoltz. From auto crashes to forming a corporation, attorney Robert L. Stoltz can help you through some of life's ups and downs. Call him at 858-0023 or visit his offices at 376 Cloud Springs Road, Fort Oglethorpe. Make a date every Friday and Saturday evening to go to the American Legion Post 40 in Ringgold to
Play bingo.
We love bingo.
It's fun for kids of all ages.
Bingo is for veterans.
Great food, lots of fun, and money to be won.
Bingo!
Bring your family and friends to the American Legion Post 40 in Ringgold. The Walker County Sheriff's Office supports high school graduation. Be smart. Stay in school.
All right, everything looked okay with that credit score. I feel a lot better. Daniel had me worried. But then he said something about pig, and I'm hoping he's not talking about the color of my dress. So what's it about, Daniel?
There's a fantastic website that I want to steer you to. It's called feedthepig.org. Zach, if you'll throw that other slide up there. There are things on that website that will educate you on things related to finance. There are also some other links into what's called a financial education, financial literacy, but it talks about saving, investing, credit cards, student loans, mortgages. All of those things are on there in an educational format. It's easily laid out. I pulled some information about credit cards for you that help you kind of identify Some of the risks related to credit cards, we've already talked about that. The costs related to those credit cards and those fees are tremendous. The benefits of those things, some of the perks and incentives that you get, the building of your credit score on those things. Where we as parents can help our youngsters learn how to use these credit cards is getting a small credit line for those credit cards. So we don't overextend ourselves. So we learn how to manage within that budgetary range. It's okay. We want them to make mistakes too. They need to make mistakes in order to learn.
True.
So if you allow them the opportunity to fall off the bicycle and skin their knee with a smaller credit card and a smaller credit line, they've got that opportunity to learn those valuable lessons that we need them to be, we need them to have, so that they become successful in the future.
So financing, will it help? I know I do this. I use my credit card, as you know, and then I pay it off at the end of the month because I receive the cash back, and then I apply that toward the payment. So I actually make money on my charge card every month. But will that help someone establish credit by doing that? A young person, could they save up and have the money and just use it and pay it off each month?
Absolutely.
That would still build
Absolutely.
credit.
Yes.
Oh, well, that's a great situation to be in then. Save up money, get that credit card with that $500 limit, and then pay it off each month. Use it and build those credit points over 6 months, a year.
You should begin seeing credit scores within 3 to 6 months.
Okay. And we were talking about parents, how they could help their teens learn about budgeting.
Yes.
And one of the suggestions when I was researching was let your teen be in charge of budgeting for the family vacation, budgeting for groceries each month, budgeting for your family entertainment, so that that teen learns the value of money and exactly what it means when that money's gone. Sorry, no Netflix, no movies, no Redbox video. The budget is gone.
Right.
And learns better about maybe preparing it and not spending all that money right up front.
If you think about the lessons that you've learned in life, you've learned them from doing. By parents allowing the child to become a part of that process, they learn by doing.
This is true. This is true. You learn about that by sticking your hand actually in the fire sometimes. It's a tough lesson, but we all survived, and we learned, we became much stronger, and we didn't let it happen again. Once is a mistake, right?
Yes.
That's it. Guys, you're being awfully quiet. What's going on over there?
One question that I have that relates to both of us, especially right now as we're going to graduate soon, what are some options for paying for college?
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of different things in the college scene. And as you're working your way through the freshman, sophomore, junior, senior years, it becomes that train right in front of you. Oh my gosh, what do I do now? Sometimes families want to pay for your college. Sometimes there might be other sources of income that you can use to pay for college, whether you're working, parents are working, relatives are working. There's scholarships that are available that are out there. Many times you have to work for those scholarships. By work, I mean you have to apply. You physically have to turn in an application, an essay, a resume of some kind, something that you do to apply for those things. Yes, it takes effort, but if you're willing to put forth the effort, you can find some additional resources to help you pay for college. The other thing that comes into play is, what college do I want to attend? You know, you can start with the community college and work your way through the first 2 years and get your base core classes completed at the community college level, and then transfer those to the 4-year college if that's your goal. That is a much more economical option, and those transfer to the college in most situations very easily. That will minimize your 4-year costs of tuition. If you can stay at home and commute to college, obviously you're saving yourself room and board. Room and board is a very expensive part of college tuition. If you happen to serve in the military, There's additional resources available for military personnel. Sometimes there are employer reimbursement programs. If you find an employer that has that program built into them and you start low on the totem pole at the employer, but they want to build you and they send you to school and they pay for your tuition, that's another option for you. At the very end, once you've considered all those, you may have to go borrow money. You may actually have to borrow money. So those are student loans. We'll talk about those. One of the things I want to make sure we hit on tonight is what's called a 529 plan. A 529 plan is an investment tool where essentially your family, somebody puts money into this 529 plan with you as the designated beneficiary to receive that, the benefits of that 529 plan. In Georgia has a specific 529 plan that's listed there on screen. It's pathtocollege529.com. And you can make up to $2,000 contributions into that 529 plan and get a deduction for your Georgia income tax purposes. So it's an incentive for you to participate in Georgia's 529 plan and save taxes. So the benefit of the 529 plan, I want to drive into a little bit more detail of that. It gets into the investing component. The 529 plan is going to have, it's not just going to sit in cash. The plan itself will invest in mutual funds. I don't know if you're familiar with mutual funds, but what the goal is for that $1,000 that you put into the plan to grow in those investments and become $1,500. So imagine a situation where you put $1,000 a year for 12 years, you have $12,000 that you put into that. If that money was invested and earned a rate of return, our hope is that that $12,000 become $18,000 or better. So parents with youngsters, keep your ears out and look into the opportunity to begin saving now and put that money in a 529 plan or an education savings account. There are differences in those two plans that we'll talk about, with the goal of that money growing to the point where you can use it for those college educations. Well, why do I want to put it in the 529 plan? I can grow it outside of the 529 plan the same way. Well, yes, that investment earnings that I referred to between the 12 and 18 is $6,000 of investment earnings. If you had that outside of a 529 plan, you will pay tax on those investment earnings. With it inside the 529 plan, that $6,000 will go untaxed for federal purposes. So we have just put money away, saved for college, and grew it, and we didn't have to pay tax on it. We got to use it to pay for college.
How about when you withdraw that money? Is it still tax-free?
As long as the withdrawals are for qualified educational expenses. Okay? So it kind of drives Paula into the two plans that we're talking about. We have the 529 plan, which is available for qualified higher education expenses. Those are your expenses for college, whether it's community college or full four-year universities. The education savings accounts are used for K through 12 expenses. And then it can continue on and be used for higher education expenses. Same concept in both. They both are investment vehicles where the investment will grow and become more. And then when that money is withdrawn for those education expenses, the investment earnings are tax-free.
And at what age should a parent or grandparent consider doing this for their child?
At birth.
At birth.
Mm-hmm.
So start early.
Yes.
Save long time,
yes,
and be able to pay for school.
Right, because the benefit is those earnings. The more you can have in that account that's earnings, the more beneficial that plan is.
Okay. Good information to know. 529 plan or ESA. Right. Both are great options in preparing for your child's future.
Yes.
I like it. I like that. All right.
Let's talk a little bit about the borrowing for college. We talked about college being paid for us. We talked about scholarships. We talked about working and saving for that money. You get to the point where you have to borrow money to help pay for college. And ideally, we want to try and get out of school debt-free, but sometimes it's not practical.
True.
So right now, the interest rates for student loans are ranging in the 6% range. Okay, there are different kinds of loans. There's a federal website there, studentaid.edu.gov, that gives you a lot of information about student loans. We've listed a couple of examples on here. If you borrow $20,000 in student loans, you're going to pay $27,000 over a 10-year period. So you want to make sure that the career you're heading to will generate a salary large enough for you to live on, save, and pay back your student loan. So the more you can minimize your college expenses, the less you have to borrow and pay back. There are some student loans that have a loan forgiveness piece to them. You can get that information on that website. There are also, if your family's income and assets are at a certain level, there are Pell Grants that are available. That's grant money. And it's important that process, the borrowing process, the financial aid process is what that's called, that begins at the beginning of the year. There is a form, a FAFSA, F-A-F-S-A form, that parents have to fill out and complete online, I believe.
Yes, it is online, and you can find that at Georgia 411 as well, or see the guidance counselor at your high school. Those guidance counselors are very, very knowledgeable about Georgia 411 and the FAFSA plan, so that you can go online with them and they'll walk you through it. They're great about that. And in order to do that, you need that tax return, Daniel.
That's why everybody wants to get their tax return done.
Yes, my son's about to kill me. So, yes. Now, I wanted to digress for just a moment, because we were talking about going to a 2-year institution, and we are very, very blessed here in North Georgia that we have the GNTCC here. Okay. We have that, and they work with us to know the actual courses to take. So if you are going on to university, a lot of kids say, well, will it matter to my future employers if I went to a community college? Georgia Northwestern Technical Community College can design that pathway so that you go straight from there with your 2 years completed into a university system, and all those classes will transfer one for one. So great opportunity here in North Georgia is GNTCC. I always plug that school. Great school. Now, you talked also about working and paying for it. Students working a part-time job. Do you see a problem with that?
I don't see a problem with it at all. I did it.
I did it as well. About 20 hours a week. Great opportunity for students to engage in their education and have some ownership of their education as well. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I love seeing these students who come to me and say, well, I made a C. I'm like, well, the state paid for it. I don't know about you, Daniel, but when I went through school, I had to pay for every book and every tuition. There were not Hope scholarships and Pell Grants. And so I treasured every class because it was so important to me, because I had that ownership. Absolutely nothing wrong with a 20-hour-a-week part-time job so that your student has a buy-in for his or her education.
Imagine, too, in that process, you're learning life skills. You're learning how to balance your schedule, balance all of the demands that you have on you. And it's an important piece of life. That's how we learn how to cope. So balancing that work schedule, balancing the responsibility to be at your job on time, wearing the clothes that you're supposed to wear, to be on time at school, in class, to get your homework done in the assigned time frame, to be prepared for your test. Those are life skills.
Yes, and those soft skills are so important now for career placement in the future after graduation.
Yes.
So many students graduate and they don't have those soft skills. They don't understand about dressing for success. The whole attire also involves your hair, your nails, how you see it. If you show up chewing gum, to your interview. Those soft skills are so important to learn while your student is in school. So a part-time job is a great opportunity for your student to experience life skills before he or she gets out and does actually obtain a job and then loses the job because of those lack of skills. That's one of the things employers worry about most, is they say that students do not always come prepared with those soft skills, those life skills. So, great opportunities.
Indeed.
Well, it's now 7:40, so we're going to take another pause and celebrate with sponsors who care about you and your family.
Is to provide professional, friendly support in weight management and all levels of fitness training. We're located at 3012 Lafayette Road in Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia, just before you enter the Chickamauga battlefield. Remember our motto, don't cheat your body, and mention it and receive a $20 discount towards our J-Blast program.
I knew I needed to lose some weight. I was, and I had a lot of people that had taken the class that wanted me to try it out. So I finally gave in, said, okay, I'll do that. The exercise program is simple. It's 18 minutes a day right now, which will go up to 28 minutes a day. And I like the knowledge to know that I have to come in on Saturdays or whenever my class is, stand up in front of him and explain why I didn't do well or I did do well. So it's all about the accountability for me more than anything. Well, for me, I take my kids to school, swing by here. I'm usually, my schedule's a little more flexible than some people's, but for me, it's not about I don't have time, it's about I make time. I would find the time, I'd find that 18 minutes somewhere, even if I have a really tight schedule, I'd find that time because it's that important to me. But it's only, like I said, 5 minutes, and then our little exercise routine that we do, they're 1 minute apiece, and you just keep moving for a minute, you get 30 seconds between each one, and then another 5 minutes, and to me that's not a lot, but you can actually accomplish a lot in 18 minutes that you didn't know you could accomplish. Well, he holds you accountable, but then you feel like you've let your class down if you have to come in and explain, I gained a pound because I went out and had this party and I ate what I knew I wasn't supposed to eat. And I don't ever want to have to get up in front of them or him and tell them why I gained weight. We go through a presentation to start with. This just helps kind of restructure the way you think about things. And then all of the members in the class are very supportive. We support each other. If you've had a bad week and then you've still lost weight at the end of it, everybody's excited because you do have rough weeks. You have weeks where you feel like, I don't think I did what I could do, but then when you come in and you get on the scale and you've still lost weight and everybody's clapping and they're excited for you, it really makes you feel a lot better about what you felt like you didn't do so well on. For me, it's the supportiveness. It's knowing that there are other people there that'll support me no matter what. If I have a bad week, they're still supportive. If I have a good week, they're supportive. It doesn't matter. And knowing that I can come in and cry on Jack's shoulder if that's what I need to do helps me out a whole lot. And I've had bad days. I've had bad weeks. We've had to discuss. He's had to talk me down off the ledge a couple of times, but I like this knowing that they care, because you don't find that everywhere. Sometimes you go somewhere, they just give you a pill and send you on your way. He actually is all about trying to change your life and the way you think about things, and I like that about Jack. I think I walk a little taller than I did a year ago, which is pretty big. You start to feel a lot better about yourself and the way you look, and for me that's big, because I've never felt that way. I've struggled in my entire life with stuff like that, so it's big. Since March 21st of last year, I'm down 40 pounds. Just that, I think most everybody you talk to would tell you that if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Welcome back to this educational issue of Solutions of Success. And we're learning about money. Something that we all care about is our money and how best to allocate the money that we earn. I understand that there's some questions about finance, Perk?
Right. As an accountant, you know a lot about investments, obviously. And for us, what would be most important is an investment that matures quickly. So what kind of investments would you suggest that would mature in a relatively short time frame?
Wow. Investing is a different world. Let me start with that. When you talk about an investment maturing quickly, that's going to be something that's held within a bank, a CD. You're not going to earn a whole lot of money on a CD. It's going to be insured by the FDIC up to a certain dollar amount. When you talk about investing, you want to think about your timeline. How much time do I have before I need this money? So you think about timelines in terms of 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. For our young folks, you might need the money in 2 years to buy the car. So you want that to be in a relatively stable investment. What you don't want to do is put that money inside a mutual fund and then all of a sudden the stock market tanks, and in a year you have less than what you invested if you were to sell today.
And that happened a few years ago. I know a lot of people lost a lot of money that they had invested for many years,
Right.
and then all of a sudden it tanked, it bottomed out.
Right.
So are there any safe ways of investing? So
There are ways that you can minimize your risk.
I like the way you put that. Minimize your risk.
Right. Financial planners, there's a certified financial planner designation out there. In fact, if you're interested in finance, that might be a good designation for you to look at. Essentially, you're thinking about in terms of minimizing your risk. You want to look at your bucket of assets that you have to work with. What money can I invest? And then once you determine how much that is, you break that bucket into what do I need in the first short term, midterm, and long term. You put your long-term bucket into more high-risk assets, equities, stock, mutual funds, exchange-traded funds that are investing in the stocks, the underlying stocks that they own. Your shorter-term money needs to be in a more stable asset, a bond fund that's going to mature in 5 years. If you need that money in 5 years, you buy the bond that matures in 5 years. That way you're guaranteed the interest rate and guaranteed the principal at the point in time it's supposed to mature. If you're in a shorter time frame, you want that money held in a safer investment, a more secure type investment. So you break that pool of assets down. Your retirement accounts, for example, that's long-term money. You're not going to retire until you're 59 and a half, 65, 70. That money can be put into 120. That money can be put into a more risky investment. But you still, within that risk pool, want to balance that investment between equities and bonds and cash. So you're not going to be able to turn $1 for $1 tomorrow unless you're willing to get into a high-risk investment. And so the high-risk investments are a longer-term horizon.
Now, I'm a mom. I can't afford to put a lot of money in each month.
Yeah.
So maybe, Zach, let's see that next slide and talk about what a single mom can do.
Absolutely. Go one more for me, Zach. There we go. We've talked about the cost of borrowing. We need to be building wealth. In order to build wealth, you have to minimize your expenses, maximize your tax savings, and invest the money that you have. So what I've shown you here is an example of investing $100 per month. Sounds like a lot of money. But when you break it down, it's $23 a day. Or a week, excuse me, $23 a week.
Yeah, and that's, less than it costs to take a couple people to the movies now.
Absolutely.
$23 is not that much.
Right. And if you will take from your paycheck and have them automatically transferred to your savings account, that $23 a week, you gain that $100 a month, you skip the daily mochas, you get rid of the family fast food dinner for 1 week.
Ouch.
But all of a sudden, over the course of time, you're able to invest that $100 a month over 5 years, and at the end of 5 years, if you've invested it and earned 3%, you have $6,500. If you invested it at 6%, you earn $7,000.
In 5 years, actually, it has gone quickly. As my baby's graduating this year, very quickly. So this really adds up, and it doesn't really hurt the family because it's coming out of the paycheck before we ever see the paycheck. It's a great way of saving and not foregoing too many mochas, but I know that's essential.
Coffee is important.
Love my coffee. Love my coffee. So it's amazing though when you look at this. $23. Let's say if you get paid every week and you did $25 a week, how quickly that adds up and becomes a significant amount of money.
Absolutely.
All right, discipline.
And that's what it boils down to, Paula. It's disciplined approach to managing your money, managing your budget, being conscious of where your money goes. I've heard of families using the cash budget approach. They put a cash in an envelope for groceries, they put a cash in an envelope for entertainment, cash in an envelope for automobile repairs and expenses. That's the money that they have to spend for those items for that period of time, whether it's a week, whether it's a month. Once the cash is gone from the envelope, there is no more. So now you can't go out and borrow money on a credit card. You can't go out and borrow. You're just going to have to learn to live without. And that cash approach makes you realize and makes you more conscious of that spending.
It definitely does. If you have to be disciplined and you don't start robbing from peak to pay Paul.
Yes.
That's, and I've always heard you pay yourself first. And that's what they mean by pay yourself first. Putting it in savings account and saving for that rainy day or that future college experience.
You got to put grain in your own storage bin.
Good analogy. Good analogy as well. Okay, gentlemen, and
well, during the break, Nick had some interesting things that I hadn't heard about, and I think it's important for the folks to hear about.
All right, Nick. We talked about these soft skill things, and you had some great information to share with us regarding soft skills and how to acquire those skills as a young person. Tell us about this.
Okay, sure. In Georgia and actually nationally, there's organizations called CTSOs, Career Technical Student Organizations. I represent FBLA, the business one, on the national level as a national officer. And these organizations have thousands of students. They go from marketing to farming to healthcare to business, and they teach students more than what they're just getting in the classroom. It's on public speaking, on finances, on there's many people coming out of colleges with degrees, but a lot of times there's not a job there. But if they can come out with a job, with a degree and some knowledge, but also they have invested in themselves in leadership, in public speaking. A very wise man once said that he'd rather have the 1% of the effort of 100 people than 100% of the effort of one person. And through these organizations, students learn how to lead others and how to get that 1% from 100 people to where they can further maximize what they're trying to do. Most high schools in the area have a CTSO of some sort. Many middle schools do as well. And all you have to do is go to a teacher that sponsors one of those, FBLA being mine and my favorite, and dues are $10 or $15, and you can go to conferences and you compete in different competitive events, over 70 competitive events depending on which CTSO. So it's a very rewarding experience that students can get involved with.
That's a great way of putting that, rewarding, because it's going to pay you in the future. I know Skills USA is another one of those organizations where students learn about design and a lot of those, not just soft skills, but future occupations. Right. They explore future occupations to see if they're even really interested in that occupation before they go through school and then, I don't really like this.
Right.
And then it's a little too late to be starting over. So good point with those organizations and in the high schools.
Get involved is what it sounds like.
That's what it is. Get involved. Be proactive about your future. Don't wait for someone else to do it for you. Sort of like that discipline thing we were just talking about. Have to have that discipline. One of the things that we were also talking about is work-based learning. That's a great opportunity also. Do either one of you participate in work-based learning?
I have not. I have many friends that do, though, and leave every day. And a lot of them, there was one actually from Ringgold that they were working at McDonald's, I believe it was, and eventually through that program, as soon as they graduated, they were going to become a manager at a McDonald's through working there while going to school at the same time. So they were going to graduate high school already with a higher paying job because of that opportunity.
That's a good way to go as well with that on-the-job training.
Right.
And also JROTC. If you serve in JROTC for 4 years or 3 years, you end up with rank, and then you go ahead and go into the reserves or into full-time military, and you're ahead of the game. So starting to plan, that's a great thing. And Daniel, with your being here and the inspiration you've provided, I'm going to start to plan a little bit better with my salary. 10% to the church, no matter what, 10% to the church off the cuff. Then that $25 a week, I'm paying it to me. You guys gonna do the same?
Absolutely.
Do either of you work?
No.
No? Well, I bet you do. Do you mow the yard?
Yes.
Okay. Do you clean your rooms?
Yes.
Try to most of the time.
Keep the car clean?
Yes.
So you have responsibilities. Your parents are teaching you responsibilities. Good deal. I like them. I met parents. I think these guys have got it going on, as do their parents. Well, viewers at home, it's been a most informative show. I've learned a lot. I hope you have as well. And as always, God bless America. And it's a great day to be in North Georgia.